I want to talk about a topic that shouldn't be controversial but seems to be, which is,
do our sites cost a little bit more to build in the short term? Yes, they probably do.
do you think they've thought about it and thought, let's not do that, let's position it as this is empowerment? Or do you think it's not crossed their mind at all?
I would like to say it hasn't crossed their mind at all, because I hate to say that they made a conscious choice and then said we don't want to get involved. Some of them may well have done that, but I actually think no, it's just. Hi Tia.
Hi.
Back in the studio.
Back again.
What are we talking about today?
Okay, so I want to talk about a topic that shouldn't be controversial but seems to be, which is sustainability of the water plants, water projects, NGOs in general. So I wanted to ask, installation of a Project Maji plant is day one. So what happens on day 1000, day 2000, day 3000 and onwards?
Yeah, that's a great question, because obviously you know this, but this is where obviously my vision for Project Maji really grew from. Was not just installing and walking away, but installing and sticking around and maintaining. And it's really surprising how many NGOs still continue to build, not only water plants, but it could be schools, it could be clinics, it could be anything where they build and walk away and it's sort of job done. And it's left to the community to run them. And what I find very frustrating is there's this narrative in the NGO world that says, okay, we're going to build this equipment, leave it to the community to run, and we've now empowered the community. Now, can you imagine that we're living at home in Dubai and DEWA comes along and brings us a water pipe and says, there you go, guys, we've brought you the water, now you look after it. And the pipe bursts, or there's no pressure. We're not capable to fix this. But that's what we expect the communities to do. Give them the equipment and say, we're empowering you to run it. It's such an anomaly. And honestly, I think it's a bit of a cop-out, because the NGOs don't want to get involved in the hard work of maintaining it. I think that's the difference with Project Maji. We do this actually because it's the hard thing to do and no one else does it. So as you know, I'm very passionate about this being the differentiator for Project Maji and other good NGOs that work in the same way that we do.
So do you think Project Maji prepares for, I don't want to say failure, but the unexpected? And how do you do that? And how do you make sure that if the unexpected happens, and it is inevitable, something's going to break at some point, how do you manage that?
So that's really well phrased, because again, when we talk about maintenance, we talk about us fixing sites if and when they fail. They will fail. Our oldest sites are 10 years old. It's completely unrealistic to expect any equipment to work that long, let alone in that harsh environment with thousands of uses every week with the pumping. Something is going to go wrong. We have to build in the plan to fix it the day that we build it. And again, that's a little different in terms of how we operate from the beginning. Because and I'll talk about water only now, but I think it probably applies to people doing clinics and schools as well. But a lot of the motivation, if you're not going to be there in the long term to maintain it, then unfortunately, a lot of the tick boxes for these NGOs is how many water sites have we built? So it's about speed of building, and it's probably about how many sites can I build with the budget that I've got. If I've got $100,000, how many can I build? And that's dangerous, because that can lead to cutting corners in cost, because I could probably build 50, okay, but let me see if I can build 55. If I can cut a corner here, save money here. Now, okay, saving money, we can argue in the donor space is good, because it's donor money, you don't want to waste it. But if that's just going to lead to using a cheaper component, a weaker component that's only going to break down 6 months earlier, there's a real problem there. So we build in quality from day one. That's really, really important. So, do our sites cost a little bit more to build in the short term? Yes, they probably do. But does that mean they can run for the long term? Yes, it definitely means that.
So why do you think this is not a standard practice? Because often we say, don't always look at it with Western eyes, the charity sector and the situation that these people might be in. Go talk to them. But we still do take some Western practices, almost the obvious ones. So why do you think in the Western world we have warranties, we have maintenance, even when you rent an apartment or something, there's maintenance involved, or you pay extra for the maintenance. These are all questions that we have as people when we are purchasing something large or renting, buying a house, whatever it may be, a car, everything. It's really in every aspect of life. So why is such a standard practice like that not carried out in the NGO sector?
So I think that's exactly why, because it's the NGO sector. And if you so as you know, we term ourselves a social enterprise, even though we're a non-profit, because we think of ourselves like a business, and my background is consumer products. So I came from that background, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. The reason we look at it differently in the Western world is because you're serving paying customers and you're making a profit. Because you can imagine if you're a water utility or an electricity utility, and you're delivering a service to someone, you're charging them and you're making a profit, you are accountable to deliver quality on that product or service. If it breaks down, you are going to have to go there, or the customer's not going to pay you and you're going to go out of business. But the NGO sector, it just gets thought of differently. It's a donation, so we should give it to them, and then we shouldn't be involved afterwards because that's too hard. Why, and internally in Project Maji, we worked very hard to change our own mindset from talking about beneficiaries to talking about customers. They're paying for the water. They're paying a very nominal price. It doesn't allow us to make a profit, but they are paying. Mm-hmm. They are still customers. They are still entitled to a service level. So why should they be diminished? Why should we abscond ourselves from responsibility just because we're a non-profit? I think they deserve that dignity, and it's a fallacy to think that we're doing them a long-term service.
So do you think the other NGOs and charities who don't include maintenance and use this word of empowering, do you think they've thought about it and thought, let's not do that, let's position it as this is empowerment? Or do you think it's not crossed their mind at all?
I would like to say it hasn't crossed their mind at all, because I'd hate to say that they made a conscious choice and then said we don't want to get involved in this. Some of them may well have done that, but I actually think no, it's just habitual. Mm-hmm. It was a convenient narrative 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when this sector really exploded, and people in the sector just haven't questioned it, and maybe that's our benefit, because we came at this from a commercial business mindset, because we weren't incumbents in the non-profit sector. We came and looked at it with fresh eyes, because I think if you're in this sector and you say, let me start another water NGO, the standard practice might be, well, how's everyone else doing it? Well, I'll just do it the same. But why not break the mold? Why not really look at, this, I always talk about the serendipity of that first visit. It was actually a blessing that I saw that broken hand pump. If it was a working hand pump, we would have gone that route, because that's what I would have seen. Well, that seems to work. Only because I was confronted with that challenge, I thought, well, something's wrong here.
Yeah, and I think, for me especially, I think seeing Project Maji and actually how not focused we are on numbers. Of course, we have a goal and we have, amounts that we want to reach, but not being focused on numbers in terms of finding the most rural villages and really focusing on quality over quantity, and making sure that instead of building 10 more, we're making sure that first site is still running. Mm-hmm. Every other site, apart from that, is also running. And I think that's something so impressive to say. And you'd actually think that that is standard practice, that, we've given everyone the gift of water. And it is a gift there. It really is a gift, because it's something that they've been deprived of or not even had. And you're maintaining it. You're not stripping it away from them, because that is horrendous to think about.
Yeah, you can imagine that, right? That it's ironic, because they don't have water, and we're never exactly in their shoes, but you can imagine sometimes it's better not to give it to them at all than to give them something that's they're going to get the taste of it, and then have it snatched away. That's almost more cruel than let them live in more sort of blissful ignorance that I don't know what life's like on the other side. So it's as a social enterprise, we don't, as a normal enterprise, let's say a commercial enterprise, companies are motivated or focused on top line growth, turnover, and profit. Those, of course, are not our North Stars and our key measures. Our North Stars are how many of our kiosks are working at any one time and how quickly can we fix them. So we still have important numbers that we look at, but they're not driven by dollars going forward. And it's interesting how we did change over time, because from day one, Project Maji was always going to be about maintenance. But for the first several years, it was about how many sites have we built and maintained. But only when we started to get to this sort of critical mass of several hundred kiosks, that actually our operations moved from being more of a build organization to being a maintain organization. The maintenance part started to become even more important than the build sites. And that's where our KPIs changed and our focus changed. Okay, we're building, that's fine, but let's make sure we put some strong KPIs around the maintenance numbers.
100%. And I think to quantify what we're speaking about, we should go through what Project Maji does, which is, if you can talk me through the annual checks, the caretakers, and what happens if, just talk us through the scenario, the tap's not working. What happens?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's a really important point to clarify. We gloss over some of these things because we do it every day, but you're right, it's important to tell the story. So, we now operate getting close to 500 access points across 3 countries. That's getting close to 500,000 people reliant on our water every day. So to the point we said, we don't want that snatched away from them. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that we are maintaining these sites regularly. So all of them are digitally connected, because our payments are digital. We know online, live, which sites are working, which ones aren't working, if performance is low. So first of all, if we detect there's a problem from our system, we can send an engineer in quick to fix it. We have a caretaker at every site, employed from the community, usually a female. In 90% of cases, it's a female. And they are our eyes and ears on the ground. So also if something goes wrong, they're a phone call away. Hey, we're detecting no water is being dispensed. What's the problem? Ironically, sometimes they'll say it's raining, so there's no sales, because these people collect rainwater. So that's a simple answer. Okay. Or sometimes they'll say there's a leak, the solar panels aren't working, etc. And then we can try and fix it. When we build our kiosks, we always try and engage the local community, again, local plumbers, local masons, to help us build them. And that has a twofold benefit, because one, when we're building the sites, we're employing the local community, which is a good and prudent and practical thing to do. But also it means when something goes wrong, we have a local mason and a local plumber in the village. So if it's a small problem, we don't have to send someone in from Nairobi, send someone in from Accra at great cost. WhatsApp is a fantastic tool. We don't have to have the most sophisticated digital systems. The caretaker can take a small WhatsApp video. This is the problem. And we can say, well, it just needs a quick fix here. So we're trying to be very pragmatic and low cost to fix these things. But also really important, this is a sophisticated piece of equipment. So just like a car, we stipulate an annual service on every single kiosk. And that can be preventative maintenance. Because sometimes we could go in and we might see, there's a crack developing on a water tank or a pipe, and we can fix it before anything goes wrong. Cleaning the solar panel, something as simple as that, because if they get too dusty, they can't catch enough irradiance and they don't pump as well. So this annual maintenance is also really, really important. And then we do, of course, have our teams that if there is something that goes wrong seriously, we will send a senior engineer and we can fix it.
And is there a timeline to sending them in?
So we stipulate to ourselves, we have two important KPIs. One is that at any one time, we cannot have less than 96% of our sites working through the year across all our network. So that's a really important number. So we have to be diligent on that. And when something goes wrong, we have to fix it within 5 days. We try and do it within 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And that's a very important number, because sometimes we get commented on, 5 days sounds a bit long, because, if you're living at home and your water stops, you want the plumber to come that afternoon. And we will try and do that. And that's why I said we use the local masons and the local plumbers. But we have to be realistic, because we put that number of 5 days because some of our sites are very, very remote, and some spare parts might not be available. But also what we try and do is, if it's a problematic, if it's a big problem that's going to be difficult to fix, we'll do sometimes what we'll term a temporary fix. We'll just make sure we tape up a pipe and make sure at least water is flowing. It might then take us a little bit longer to get the new pump or the new panels or the new whatever it is to fix it so it's flowing like new. But the key is to get water flowing as quick as possible. Again, we view these guys as customers. Why shouldn't they be delivered excellent customer service like we would if we were a commercial organization?
Well, I think that's fantastic. I think that should be the standard practice in industry. And talking about empowerment before, this is actually empowerment. Hiring the local masons, hiring the local plumbers, empowering typically a woman to be a caretaker, that is empowering the villagers and using their skills and having them have an extra piece of income for themselves to benefit the village and to do more. So I think that's amazing, and I think even though Project Maji can be considered a smaller NGO, I think it is, and I'm biased, light years ahead of a lot of other charities and NGOs.
Well, I like to think of it that way, but I like to think of us as a shining light, as a leader, not just to keep this to ourselves. And that's why this dialogue is so important, because I hope others can catch on to that and develop their own models in the same sustainable way.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.